Deliberate or accident, both are still possibilities. Either way, this was a drone attack on an EU nation, a Nato member, that injured 2 civilians. A drone attack, Romanian officials say, launched by Russia. Do we still have safety, she asks? Not anymore, right? We could have died, this woman says. I am afraid. What can I say? I'm speechless. 2 a.m. in Galati, an eastern town near Romania's border with Ukraine. A torchlight scans the 10th floor carcass of what was someone's apartment. This is not the first time Russian drones have strayed into Romanian territory, but it is the first time their citizens have been hurt.
We had a Russian drone leave Russia. We know the trajectory, we know where it passed through Ukraine, we know where it entered Romania. Part of a swarm of 43 Russian drones, of which only 1 reached Romanian territory.
Condemnation has rained down on Moscow throughout the day. NATO's General Secretary said Russia's reckless behaviour is a danger to all of us. But it's fallen on deaf and defiant ears here. No one can say where a particular aircraft originates from until it's examined, President Putin told reporters. A less aggressive stance than that of his former Prime Minister. Dmitry Medvedev posted to Telegram, "The Euro impotents are throwing a fit over a drone hitting some residential building in Romania. Obviously, it has to be established who launched the drone. But regardless, every EU country really ought to shut up about it. European nations are direct participants in the war against Russia," adding, "Citizens of EU countries, as the population of nations at war, shouldn't be going to sleep expecting peaceful nights." There are few peaceful nights in Ukraine, though. 4,000 people were left without power in the southern city of Odessa as it suffered a massive drone attack this morning. Ukraine is pioneering its own cutting-edge drone technology, though, that has slowed Russian advances and enraged their frustrated enemies, say Ukrainian analysts.
They are increasing the attacks against the civilians, but it's more like despair rather than the success from their side. So they will need to change their tactics in case they would like to advance. And Russia is losing more people than what they are able to recruit. So this summer would be tremendously important. And with the proper supply of the weapons for Ukraine, with the proper supply of air defense and munition, and with the change of the tactics that we see now when Ukraine is deliberately targeting Russian logistics, it is a possibility to have a turning point where Ukraine will be winning again.
Russian spending on this war is spiralling, reportedly $28 billion over budget for this year alone. Whatever the cost, measured in pounds spent or lives lost, President Putin is happy to spend it, say experts.
This year, even though Russian statistics may not admit it, the economy is probably officially in recession and will be there at least for the next 12 to 18 months. And so at the outset of the war, President Putin promised to his constituents, to the Russian people, he said to them that the war will not impact the way that you lead your lives. This year, more than any preceding year, the war really is beginning to pinch harder than ever. And it is making life materially more difficult for the average Russian citizen.
But will those privations have any impact on President Putin's stability?
No. He will continue that military effort no matter what is happening to the Russian consumer.
This evening, Ukraine's President Zelensky said he spoke to his Romanian counterpart and offered support. An offer to a valued ally, he said, that has consistently stood by Ukraine through 4 long years of war.
Well, I've been speaking to Romania's Foreign Minister, Ioana Soy, and started by asking her reaction to President Putin's denial that Russia was behind the drone attack.
It is quite clear that it is a Russian drone. Our teams on the ground have tested both the explosive and the design that Russia is using for its drones. It is also very clear to us. It is an irresponsible gesture, an irresponsible act, and Russia needs to take responsibility for that, not to try to divert the public audience through such fake information, such as different attribution of the source of the drone.
What do you want them to do?
Well, we have clear messages on Romania's side. We have decided today not to allow for the General Consulate of Russia in Constanța to continue its activity. We have assigned the general counselor there, persona non grata, and he has 72 hours to leave the territory of Romania. What we want Russia to do is to respect international law and human life, and also, of course, to respect our territory and the safety of our citizens, as well as the territory and safety of civilians in Ukraine and everywhere around the world, for that matter.
I mean, Putin has been criticized and condemned by NATO leaders for 4 years now, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. Where do you think this is going?
I do believe our strategy at the European level and international level to increase the pressure on Russia is a strategy that needs to be continued and accelerated. I've had a conversation today with my fellow colleagues across the world and in the European Union to accelerate the pace for the 21st package of sanctions at the European level, but of course to coordinate that internationally. I do believe pressure in time will work, and I think it is very important that we do see an international response as we have seen these days, and I want to thank the leaders of UK for their solidarity. I have spoken with Yvette Cooper throughout the day. We have seen the statements of Keir Starmer and other political leaders, and we believe that is important to show that the security of one is the security of all. We are also grateful for the presence of UK airplanes and pilots in our common air policing missions, as we do believe that incursions into our airspace might happen into the future as well, and our international collaboration to protect the eastern flank is very important.
Now, as we speak, America is deciding whether or not to accept an offer to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That crisis has clearly given Russia quite a boost in that it has doubled the price of Russian oil and given it a lot more money with which to wage war in Ukraine. I mean, does this linkage between these two crises make it even more important for you that the Iran crisis is solved?
Exactly, and that is why we are involved in the diplomatic effort and the coalition of the willing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the one that is led by UK and France, as well as the effort led by the Department of State.
Minister, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, joining me now is Nina Khrushcheva, Professor of International Affairs at the New School in New York City and granddaughter of the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. Thank you for joining us. We saw another NATO leader there saying pressure on Russia will work. Is there any reason to believe that?
I don't believe it. Thank you. Russia is not doing well. In a sense, it's doing worse than it did 3 years ago, even last year. Economy is certainly suffering. There are more and more attacks, very successful attacks of Ukrainian drones on the Russian public, which of course the war cannot be ignored on the Russian territory. But Putin is not that kind of guy. Putin is a guy that the more you press him, the more he pushes back. If there is an escalation, he's going to get more escalation. If Russia is doing worse, it doesn't matter for him because the war is going to be fought the way he wants to do it. So when the Western leaders suggest that the pressure on Putin works, I don't know exactly what they mean by the pressure working. Russia is getting weaker, yes. Russia is going to be less likely to end the war, not Russia. Putin is going to less likely to end the war, no.
So why then, do you think, has Putin been recently saying more than once that we are near an end to the war?
Well, I think it is sort of a message to President Trump more than anything. The message is we're ready to end the war the way we discussed. Apparently, that's what they discussed in Alaska last year, that if Ukrainian leadership is giving up Donbas territory, and the Russians have been saying it quite a bit in recent months, that if they're giving up Donbas, they know what to do, the war will end. So that's the message to Donald Trump, is that if Vladimir Zelensky is willing to do this, we're willing to end this. But without that, unfortunately, Putin is saying it's not going to be the end to it.
In terms of the impact in Russia, we are seeing spending cuts as a result of the war, and the latest intelligence assessments were that more than 500,000 Russian soldiers have been killed since this war began, do those sorts of impacts actually change anything in terms of public support or the government's will to carry on there?
Well, the public support was never there. I mean, I know there have been reports that, oh my God, 82%, 85% of Russians support that. That never was the case. There's always been over 50% of people who always want to have peace negotiations. And this is in the country where there's a almost total control, where whatever the answer is given, which is not directly connected to the Kremlin idea, it can be dangerous and whatnot. So the support was never there. It was more of a mercenary war. Yes, Russians are very upset, but at the same time, the security tactics are getting very, very strict. I mean, internet is almost blocked at times, and restrictions on freedom is increasing. I mean, it's not a totalitarian society yet, but soon enough it will be. And therefore, whatever the public is feeling, it doesn't matter, because Putin is going to fight that war no matter what. And if it is going to be difficult and the West is more involved in it, that would be an extra argument for him, is that, look, we are not fighting just with Ukraine. It's going to be even stronger. I mean, he's been saying it all along, but even stronger. We're not fighting just with Ukraine. We're fighting with the whole Europe. And therefore, even if you don't want to, you have to get patriotic. You have to get involved. So I think that's what we should be looking at, and not how the pressure is going to make Putin change his mind. He's not going to change his mind.
What we have seen in Europe over the last couple of years, partly as a result of what's going on in Ukraine and partly as a result of Donald Trump, is European governments and Britain saying we're all going to have to spend a lot more on defence, even though it's not obviously affordable. Britain is trying to work out how to fund its defence review right now with no obvious ways of doing it. Is that a win for Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think the win is even the conversation is a win in a sense, because if he's going to fight that war, the militarized Europe is better for him than it is not, because that actually proves his point that the West wants to attack Russia. And basically it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy on both sides. Russia militarizes and fights, and Europe militarizes and prepares to fight. So ultimately, somewhere in this, my fear is going to be a war. And that Romanian drone in Romania suggests that. I mean, I don't believe it was deliberately sent to Romania, but there would be more and more incidents like that. There have been more and more incidents like that. And I think ultimately something is going to blow up to the point when the war would become inevitable.